From the nosebleeds to the studio, I'm your host, LJ. And today want to tell you, like I've been previewing for weeks, this is a very special episode. We finally have our first guest live via Zoom. I want to welcome the Orlando Magic radio host slash producer. This is very, very important episode just for Magic fans and I think for everybody, Orlando community, me personally, myself, and hope for everybody new listening to the podcast. But I want to welcome in Jake Chapman. Welcome in.
Hey, what's happening? How are you?
Good. Round of applause for you, sir.
Okay, well done. Well done.
Awesome,
I like
awesome.
It.
Oh, yeah.
You got some people back there off camera that I can't see?
Oh, yeah. No, we got the live studio audience, just kind of in the background,
I knew it. I knew you wouldn't let me down.
Never. But all right, man, again, the pleasure is all mine. I want to thank you for coming on in today. And, like I mentioned first, Orlando Magic radio host slash producer. Well, that's just the tip of the iceberg. I kind of want to today give the people a chance to kind of see someone who I feel like is very important to the everyday production of just the games and just overall productivity of just how things run. Like, I think if you've actually ever listened to any of the Magic podcast, you really see like just the quality behind it. And I know we had some issues, especially recently with the whole draft and stuff like that. I know you're not entirely responsible for everything, but it's just like once you actually see it, I think it's amazing being on this side of things. And I want to kind of shine a light a little bit to you and give you one little bit of recognition that I hope you get more of, honestly. And, just kind of just get into what kind of your everyday life is like. And I know previously before I'll let you kind of dive into it, but as you can see the Ohio State flag in the background for those of you guys watching on the YouTube or Facebook Live. It is labeled in your Twitter bio, basically your journey, how you started, basically Ohio State and then Magic, Detroit, Cleveland, back to the Magic. So, just kind of give a brief introduction about yourself, what you do, and then tell us a little about your journey, man.
Sure. You got it. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on as always, Jay. I was born outside of Cleveland, Ohio, and raised up in a small town, went to Ohio State, got a journalism degree. And my career, like the turning point was early. It was when I graduated from Ohio State. I got the seasonal internship to come down and be the radio intern. That was back in 06, 07. And that was the first year that Dante, who's still there, Dante Marcatelli, became the radio manager. And they had just hired a new radio producer. So 2 years after that, like I stayed in Florida, I bounced around, I attended bar, and I was doing traffic reports, anything to overnight to WDVO, anything to stay in the mix. But pretty quickly, the producer that they hired, a guy by the name of Justin McKim, a great guy, he had kind of some family stuff, needed to move back to Pennsylvania where he was from. So that was the second break. Dante gave me a call when I was 25 years old, and I got the job as radio producer. Spent 5 seasons doing that, and then I went up to Detroit. And part of the reason I went up to Detroit was to be closer to my family. It was a great opportunity. It was more on air. But what I sacrificed when doing that was the security of working for the Orlando Magic versus now my employer was a radio company. And this was in 2014, and radio for about 20 years now has been a pretty volatile, place. Mergers, acquisitions, T-com companies, German money coming in, whatever. So now all of a sudden I'm sitting there watching the trades every day, trying to figure out if my company was going to get sold, because that's what happened. People told me it was good. Go work for a company that doesn't have any debt. Well, the problem with no debt is it makes it very easy to sell. And so the sale process happened like that. They flipped the format on the station that I was working for. And so it was a sports talk station. Perfect. Then it became a hip hop and R&B, a throwback hip hop and R&B station, which I like throwback hip hop and R&B. It's just not necessarily my specialty. So that just sort of screwed things up. Like the Pistons kept me around and they were great. And I loved all the people working there. I'm actually really, really happy for them getting Kate Cunningham and brighter days finally ahead for everybody up there. But I knew I had to make a move, and I ended up in Cleveland. Dream come true, working 92.3 The Fan, Browns Radio Network. I was producing the midday show. I was getting to host my own on Sundays, but it just didn't have everything that I needed, right? It was a good sort of, I guess, bridge to get me back down here. And eventually Dante gave me a call. He said, look, how do you feel about coming back? Like
the man,
it won't be the exact same as it was before, right? Like I've got more on-air opportunities. I'm hosting the pre and post game now. We really tried to take the podcast network and run with it and make sure the Magic are in that space where they need to be in 2021. And so it's been 2 years now since I've been back, and it has not been a normal 2 years, I think, for probably anybody. But we're inching our way back to getting people in the building and doing the broadcast the way we want to do it. Things are forever changed, right? Like when I came back, I went back to the studio that I was working at RDV Sportsplex. And when the pandemic hit and we started working remotely, that changed. And now we're more based out of Amway Center and I'm more based in my house. But the Magic is a great organization to work for. It's Dante is my mentor, and he means so much to me in my career. We just work really well together. So I'm back. I'm home. I'm happy. And now we got to get some wins, and we got to get these broadcasts going a little more fun. It's a lot more fun when you're talking about a win after the game.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. No, but just on that note, man, I gotta say, and just from kind of feeling the fans on social media, and I'm one of the supervisors in the box office, and even internally, just with kind of us amongst at least a few of us, and kind of just the mood is definitely in a positive swing. And like I've mentioned earlier, the Atlanta Magic Podcast Network and all everything that you guys have been putting out, I've been noticing the responses to it have been, at least in my opinion, definitely a lot more than they have, since I've it's like, it steps, to your point. Like once you start winning, we'll definitely get more, because eventually things will plateau as it always does if we continue to be the team that we are to be. But I feel like you guys have definitely knocked it out the park in just the way you started. And I got the chance to see Dante at one of the draft parties, and getting a chance to speak with you and mention you guys. Like just seeing what you guys do, again, being in this space myself is just inspiring, because it's like I've listened to other broadcasts and I listen to other podcasts, and at the end of the day, they don't paint the picture as well as you guys do when we're talking about a game, or when we're talking about trying to kind of interact with players. And it seems very casual. I did also get a chance to cover a game one time in the locker room last year, and that was a dope experience. And just seeing the camaraderie between all the kind of reporters there, and even though I was the rookie, the kind of fish in the water, they were helpful in making sure I at least got the content I needed for my interview and stuff like that. And so kind of just being around it, and again seeing everything, you guys are definitely it's gonna happen. Just the team, only a matter of time.
Well, I appreciate that. And I think, Jay, like, because you and we've corresponded now, and you've picked my brain before, and we've talked about this, like seeing people like you, like going out there and grabbing what you want to do, like that gives me life. That sort of re-energizes me, because no matter what, like it becomes work, right? Like
exactly.
This is my dream job. This is all I ever wanted to do. But in late March, when I've been going real hard for about 6 months, and I got my eye on, the off season or getting up to see my family up in Ohio, you still do need a recharge every once in a while. So, people like you who have a passion for what we all do and for what you do, I think it's important to keep people like that in your life, keep talking to people like that, and
for sure.
keep counting your blessings,
Oh no, for sure. And again, thank you for those words. And again, it's just not for nothing, man. It's just I mean everything I say, and it's just the truth, man. You need to hear it. Again, I know it definitely doesn't happen maybe as often as it should, but hey, I'm here for that moment.
Yeah, tell the bosses.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. We'll let them know. They're gonna see this soon. That's the plan. But no. So speaking of just kind of some of your work, I know one of the more recent things you got a chance to do was the Giannis Tima interview. I did get to briefly exchange with you on Twitter about that, and I talked with a bunch of people about it. That was great. That was lovely. Kind of just tell us your experience kind of interviewing him and what that was like, man.
See, that's the stuff that I love, like, look, he played really well in the first summer league game, fell off a little bit. But there was talk, people were, is this guy going to make the roster, for crying out loud? And then you had the look. And for those of you, if you don't know, Giannis Tima is a 29-year-old Finnish pro with this like bleach blonde hair, and he's all tatted up, and he looks like
he got the look.
Yeah, I don't know. He looks like Eminem circa 2002 or something like that, right? Like, but super nice. And then he's got this incredible story. Obviously, like he's bounced around. He's from this sort of region. I think it was near the Belarusian border, where he didn't even see NBA games or know much about the NBA until he was a teenager. But he's a very successful international player, and then he's married to this superstar in Russia, pop star. And so like, oh, okay, oh yeah, oh, this guy's playing well. And then you pull up his Instagram and you're like, oh, and then you see like TikTok videos where he's pushing a Murcielago in Miami, and it's like, this dude's like the most interesting man in the world. So that's the type of stuff that, if you go all the way back, I don't know if people remember Dante and Galante doing summer league games and the goofy stuff we used to do with people like Ryan Anderson, JJ Redick. Mm-hmm. That's the stuff that I love doing, that personality-based stuff. The game is the game. And look, as a broadcaster, I take very seriously my responsibility of presenting the story, whether it's pregame, halftime, postgame, in-game, whatever. That's first and foremost. That's why people know who I am or tune into what it is we're doing. But I enjoy the Giannis Tima stories. Yes. And getting to do that stuff, because that's just fun. Now we're telling their stories. Now it's not about 21 points per game and 6 boards. It's more about the funny TikTok video you did, or tell us what life is like. How has life changed when nobody knew your name on Monday, and now all of a sudden, people are talking about you, at the very least in Orlando. But I don't know, if you're a member of NBA Twitter, Giannis Tima was all over the place for about 72 hours, right?
It was unavoidable.
Exactly.
Sure.
So that stuff's fun, and he was great. And a lot of times, and I'm not going to say this about, we got a lot of great guys here on our team, but just throughout my past here and elsewhere, as guys get bigger and bigger in stature and money and fame and notoriety, they get more insulated and more difficult to connect with. When you got a guy like Giannis Tima, it's just like talking. It's just like you and I talking, right? Mm-hmm. Like, there's no element, there's no pretense. He doesn't think I'm trying to get anything out of him, or trying to ask him gotcha questions and stuff like that. So a lot of times the guys you might not know that much about, or those stories that we're trying to get out to fans, those are the more fun ones to tell. And he was great.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like I said, that was definitely one of the most enjoyable interviews I've heard in a while. And just to your point, the character that he is, man, I think, again, if you were on Twitter at all at that moment, you didn't have to be a fan of the NBA. Yeah, I'm sure you saw him trending at some point, and it might have piqued your interest. And definitely, the story for me was definitely, like you said, the journey was inspiring. And to me, I was one of those. I was like, okay, he'll get one of the final roster spots, but then now we got the signing of Eats One More. Want to get your opinion about that, and then but kind of like now we still got the 1 2-way I think left. I doubt he'll come here for a 2-way, so I think those. What do you think? How that last roster spot will shake out?
We'll see. The thing right now, Jay, with where the team is you want to have some flexibility, and I think like the Etuan signing makes perfect sense to me, because you have all of this youth. So you bring in Giannis Tima in, for instance, or somebody of that ilk, I guess. You're hoping that you struck gold. You're not hoping you struck gold with E'Twaun Moore. You know what E'Twaun Moore is, but what that is very, very valuable to players like Jalen Suggs and Cole Anthony and the guys in the backcourt, RJ. So I think you sort of have to weigh, right? Like E'Twaun's not going to come and change the season around this season, although he has played really well the last 2 or 3 years. He's an excellent bench piece, but the value obviously is bringing a vet in, show him the day-to-day. This is what when the going gets rough, right? Like this is how you have to do. Like I was talking about before, late March, right? Who is it that's sort of soldiering through and making sure they're going to finish the job? And that's what. Anytime you play as long as E'Twaun Moore has played in the NBA, that's a guy who's doing it the right way, putting the work in to stay on rosters, because it's tough, especially when you get a little bit older. But going back to the original point, I think for another season, and I know when you play as many young players as the Magic are playing this year, winning 50 games is going to be difficult. So I think having some of that flexibility as far as the roster goes, and just making sure you're not committed long-term to much, right? Like too many things, I think, J.I. and Markel, right? It made sense to sign those extensions, but the Magic right now have a whole bunch of young talent on roster. They know that this is going to be a process. So you don't want to tie yourself into anything too long-term. And so I think that probably weighed in as well.
Definitely similar to probably why we signed Robin. I think that's probably one of the most interesting signings, I think, of the offseason, just from his character, the dynamic obviously he has with stuff. But to your point, the veteran presence, like there was a lot of backlash on Twitter and stuff when his signing came. But I'm like, you really think he's going to eat up a lot of minutes?
The Moore one or Lopez? Which one?
Lopez.
Yeah, I mean, look, to me, it's Robin Lopez can almost bring as much value in practice as he can on the floor, right?
Exactly.
Having Wendell Carter Jr. and Mo Bamba have to deal with Robin Lopez day in and day out, that's going to toughen him up. Remember Dwight and Gortat? The way Dwight always talked about what Gortat did for him in practice, because they were, every day and Gortat the same way. He said, I got to deal with Dwight every night. When I get out to the games, that's the easy part, right? So I think that's the type of stuff you bring in. And plus, Rolo, like who better to have in a locker room with E'Twaun Moore, kind of an elder statesman type in the backcourt, and then Rolo, who is elder statesman, yes, but like court jester elder statesman, right? Like he is going to keep it light. He's going to be fun. I think you can't have it. Well, I think you could probably have too many guys like that, but I think it's great to have one or two guys like that who are going to do the work and keep everybody accountable. I always, with a guy like Robin Lopez, remember last year when Westbrook first got to Washington. Him and Lopez had been teammates before. He loved having Robin Lopez as his teammate, and so if Rolo can be as goofy as he is and as fun as he is on one side, and then have the respect of a guy like Westbrook because he's bringing it in practice every day, that's the type balance that I want in my locker room for sure, especially when we're talking about veterans.
Yeah, no, I think to your point, I think that's the perfect thing. Like that was my initial thought. I'm like, I didn't see anything negative about it. I think the biggest criticism with that he was going to eat away at the the minutes of Mo Bamba, Wendell Carter, etc. And I'm like, come on, guys, let's not get carried away here. I think think Robin Lopez knows where he's at in his career, and the Magic know what they're doing as far as the signing. So I've covered it to your point. That's a great. They've already had he's already had his interactions with stuff too. So we're going to be in for a fun season. That's for sure. Definitely. All right, so just to get a couple more opinions on the team, we mentioned the young core, RJ, Cole, Suggs, also Fultz coming back. Obviously, we got the biggest question: who's going to be our starting backcourt? I mean, I have my opinion, but I think I think everybody is kind of split for the most part. I mean, I think when healthy, you go Fultz and Suggs, but I want to see where you stand on that.
Yeah, I think this is going to be interesting, Jay. Part of it is going to be based on the fact that Markel is probably going to ease back, right? The last thing you want to do is to rush Markel back onto the floor. So whether or not that means you bring him off the bench at first and ease him back into the minutes, or you maybe wait a little bit longer for him to play and to play meaningful minutes, and then you put him back into the starting lineup. Coach Mosley's got a lot of questions to answer, and some of them are going to be kind of difficult. I do think when you have your full complement, it probably makes sense to have, like the one thing I don't think you'll see is too small a backcourt. I think you'll have, I think you'll figure out a way to have whoever on the floor, because the 1 and the 2 and the point guard and the shooting guard, like that's kind of
it's redundant
like
at this
anymore,
point,
right? They're all combo guards now, right? If you
exactly.
can't shoot, then I don't know what to tell you. If all you're doing is passing, right? And if all you can do is shoot, then you're probably going to be like a bench specialist. What the Magic have done now is they've signed many, or at least a handful, signed or drafted or accumulated a pretty good stable of guards, a pretty good sort of group in the backcourt that should all be able to play together. You have to have multiple playmakers on the floor at a time. So, for instance, when I look at Cole, I say, okay, Cole is going to be, I think he profiles more as kind of maybe a 6-man. He can certainly be a starter, but when Cole's in the game, he's in the game for offense, right? And he's in the game to score. Yes, he's going to be able to create for his teammates. Yes, we expect to see growth on the defensive end, but we know what Cole's role is. And Markelle is probably a pretty good complement next to him. Now, does that mean that they'll be the starters? No, I'm pretty sure Jalen Suggs is going to be a starter at some point, probably sooner than later. Sure. But I think you probably want to figure out, does starting even matter? Like, what really matters is finishing games. Mm-hmm. Maybe you've got like you're doing a hockey sort of shift change type thing. Doesn't matter who's starting, but no matter what, I think what you're going to see is you're going to want those complementary skill sets next to each other, and you're going to want to try all of it anyways, right? Everybody's so young. Coach Mose is going to want to see what those combinations look like one by one. So I don't think it's going to be as important early on who's starting and exactly like how it's the minutes are sort of splitting up, because it's just going to be a whole lot of experimenting. It's going to be Dr. Mosley in his laboratory, mixing stuff up and seeing what works. So it should be fun. It might, you might stub your toe a few times and you might figure out, okay, maybe these two don't necessarily work together. But for a head coach to have different players that he's trying to get on the floor, that's one of those good problems.
Definitely. And speaking of good problems, not only do we have one in the backcourt, we got something going on with our front court in Wendell Carter and Mo Bamba. That's definitely, I think, maybe the most important one at the moment, considering their contract situations. They're both due at the same time. I think it's one or the other. I definitely don't think it's both. So it's a matter of, I think, who wins that out. It's going to
be interesting because because I'm not sure if that's the case. One or the other. Okay. It depends. Look, it depends on money. And it depends on how this year goes, and it depends on agents, and it depends on politics. It depends on all that stuff, right? What I do think is that Wendell it's got, if it is one-on-one, Wendell's got the edge right now because of the way he played. Granted, it's a small sample size, but you just haven't had that consistency from Mo, and we've detailed why ad nauseum. A lot of it is injuries and not being able to get a full offseason under his belt. Everything we've heard, and this happens every year, I don't want to get too carried away with it. Everything we've heard and everything we've seen, it's been a good offseason. He's putting the work in, right? He's healthy and all those things. So I think you got to be confident that you're going to see an improved Mo Bamba, but for an extended period of time. That's what I want to see, because we've always seen the flashes, right? You see the 4 blocks in 6 minutes or the 3 made threes, and what it can be if it all comes together for Mo. But you got to see it now. You got to see it day in, day out, and that is a huge year for him, huge offseason for him. So I think, and whereas with Wendell, it's a little bit more of a known quantity. I think we know what Wendell Carter Jr. is, which is a very, very good front court player. I think there's a lot less question marks there, but the two of them aren't the same player by any stretch of the imagination. Kind of going back to what we were talking about with the guard. So I could see there certainly being room for both of those guys on roster, and probably, depending on how creative Coach Mose wants to be, maybe on the floor together. I mean, it's not the end of the world to have 2 7-footers out there, especially if one of them can shoot like Mo can. I mean, as long as you're spacing the floor offensively, you can do some things like that. And can you imagine dealing with that defensively? You got Mo patrolling the rim and Wendell out there working pick and roll and hedging on bigs. Like, I think that could be very, very intriguing, but it's another one of those questions like, you got 2 good players. Which one you want on the end on the floor at the end of a game? That's not the worst thing to be. But it's a huge year for Mo. Going back to Mo, I think he knows it too. I mean, I don't think the first few years of his career have gone the way that he wanted him to go, and I don't think that's a a stretch by any sense. So it's going to be really interesting to see. I think early on we're going to have a sense like, did the offseason go the way Mo wanted it to go? Is he healthy? Is he happy? You know, does he look like he's on the right track, or do we have some question marks? I'm gonna be anxious to watch him early.
No, yeah, you do bring up a great point, and like I think it gets lost in the small ball era, 3-point shooting. Like having two big men, especially as mobile as they are, it could easily work. And like
Sure.
you put those two out there, to your point, who's really going to stop that? Not many teams will be able to stop that or score on that necessarily. Right. But I think I just think my question is more about the money. I feel like they both probably command the same amount of money in a contract. If they could work it out, by all means, I would love to see them. I would love to see them grow together and continue to, be on the team. But I think it's just like one or the other in the sense we heard the rumors that Wendell Carter was going to get seeking, whether those were credible or not. Obviously,
yeah, I'm seeking 70 million too.
But I think that's more around the range of what a big man would get.
I'm also.
All right, hold on. Making sure. Yeah. All right. So I had a little bit of connection there. All right, we're good now. All right. So I mean, yeah, that's pretty much the biggest, I think, question marks, other than like I mentioned, the backcourt is that front court battle. Again, I am just super excited for the outlook of the team in general. I saw something on ESPN a few days ago, and we were projected pretty much the worst team in the league. Not really quite sure how I feel about it. When you look at every other team around the league, I mean, I guess you could see it from like a name standpoint. I guess the name value from our team really isn't quite there as everyone else's, but obviously there's now questions on when JI gets back. But if Fultz gets back within a reasonable time and the team continues to play, I definitely don't see us being the worst team in the league. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think those projections come based on the amount of youth on roster, I think. Yeah. And the fact that two of your best players are coming back from injuries. And so you don't know what that's going to look like at the beginning of the year. So I understand it. And look, they were one of the worst three teams in the league last year. And it's not like we went out and signed, James Harden or whatever, we didn't trade for Lowry. It's not like we made moves that are going to instantly make the team better, except I do think you can make the argument that Jalen Suggs and Franz Wagner will instantly make the team a bit better, but they got a long way to go. They're kids.
Yes.
So, when you've got as many 23 and unders on roster as the Magic do, people are going to assume it's going to be a long year. New head coach, there's a whole lot of newness, which is okay. Like this, I think we sort of signed up for it and had a sense that this is how it was going to be at the trade deadline last year. You trade away Vooch and Aaron Gordon and Evan Fournier, and you're not going to get back. Like, why would you get back players who are immediately as good as those guys are, right?
Yeah, no.
You trade because you're bringing back draft assets, young players, and you're planning for the future. So patience is going to be a key here. To me, like, look, if you can contend for a playoff spot, outstanding. I doubt you're going to be a top half team in the Eastern Conference. But if you're in the mix, then that's great. All I really need to see is improvement and promise. Like I just want to know Jalen Suggs is the right guy, Cole Anthony's the right guy, RJ Hampton's the right guy. I just want to know that they've got a group here that eventually is going to be something special. And then you sit back and you watch and you enjoy the growth process. Because to me, especially in the NBA, that's some of the most fun stuff there is watching a group of guys, going back to the Dwight teams, like as they sort of started building. I mean, it was so fun to have a group like that and to have it all sort of feel like organic, and sustainable. You drafted in one draft, you got your starting point guard and your starting center, and then you just sort of tweaked, like, okay, Hito here, and then you throw the money at Richard and you draft JJ, and now all of a sudden it just started sort of building, but you had to be patient, obviously, right? I mean, it took 5-6 years or whatever to put that together. So I think you've got the group now, and now the whole thing is like, let's just start plugging things in, seeing what works. And that's what this season's going to be about. And unfortunately, sometimes that means not a whole lot of W's. So we'll see how it plays out.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. And to your point, I think it's just, we gotta just enjoy it, Magic fans. I think everybody just just
Just
enjoy the
enjoy the
ride.
ride. Just
I
enjoy the
think it,
ride.
yeah, man.
29 other teams ain't gonna win a championship this year either, right? So what's the
Exactly.
difference if you're winning X amount of games and this amount of games? Obviously, you want to make the postseason, you want to feel like you're close. But to me, if you knew last year, and I think the front office had a sense, we're not going to be that one team, right? With Vooch and with Evan and with AG. Even if everything goes perfectly, no injuries, whatever, we're probably still a piece or two away from getting to that level. And so they said, what's, can we hope that we make the right free agent signing or make the right trade and it puts us over the top? Or should we try to build something sustainable where now we're not hoping for just that one sort of like lightning strikes?
Mm-hmm.
Now we do have
control.
We've got options, we've got a plan in place to develop young talent, and that's the way I think you got to do it in Orlando, is to do it through the draft, build something sustainable, kind of like San Antonio did 25 years ago.
For sure. To the point, I initially was like, I don't know if I was in the minority, but I was definitely not so much shocked by the trades, especially Gordon and Fournier. I knew it was coming. The Vooch one, I think, was the main one that I think caught me and I think anyone else off guard for the most part. To me, my only thing with the trade, while I was fully sold on the rebuild, I still felt like if we were having this big man dilemma that we're still having, I felt like what was the pain in having Vooch still on the roster? Granted, you know, there's a lot of different factors there, but I was maybe the minority in that thing, and I was like, considering how much he loved the city, I was like, I think it could have worked having him with the young guys, you know. But
you were not at all in the minority, Jay, and that's like that was a very difficult decision to me, because I was somebody who was okay with it,
mm-hmm.
but I was okay with it because I thought to myself, Vooch is at the point in his career where he can help you win a championship. He can be one of the best players on a championship team. But we didn't have that roster around him. I didn't think. We certainly didn't have what Chicago is putting around him right now with the moves they've made. Having Vooch on roster wasn't bad. What you got back for trading him is why you made the move, right? I mean, getting those picks and getting Wendell Carter Jr. and one underrated aspect of all of that was getting off of Al-Farouq Aminu's contract, because now all of a sudden, because that was a whole nother year, right? He pretty quickly opted in,
yeah,
to that player option. Shocker.
Don't blame him.
Guy's been dealing with injury issues. And look, that was a floor. He did exactly what you asked Al-Farouq. He's a solid role player, and I think it made sense when you signed him, because you had a sense that if everybody was healthy with that team, you could make it, win a playoff series or two. They could have been a probably top 4 team in the Eastern Conference, I think, when you brought Aminu in. And we're talking about the pandemic year, so everything was screwed up that year anyways. But I think it made sense. Injuries hit, and then once you make the decision, we're trading Booch, we're trading Evan, we're trading AG, then, of course, Al-Farouq Aminu is somebody you want to try to move on from, and you want to clear the decks from any of that sort of leftover money, so that if next season, if you feel like you're getting there and, okay, now you have the ability to go out and make that move, or to throw money around in free agency or do whatever you need. When you decide to tear it down, you got to clear that money. You got to add picks and draft capital. And so that's when the hard decisions come in. Trading a guy like Vooch sucks, but getting a guy like Wendell Carter Jr. and a couple first round picks and clearing $12 million off your books doesn't suck. So that's what it is. You got to give to get.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that was the hardest part. It was looking at the light at the end of the tunnel. For me, the picks didn't mean much at the time. And I mean, looking now, one of them turning into Franz. It's funny. They're at the draft party, at the draft night. They're at the Amway Center. I called it after we had the Suggs and everyone was euphoric. I was there with Al and Anthony from Orlando Magic HQ. We were there just kind of debating, and I think I told Anthony, like, last second, right before we got the pick, I was like, watch it be Franz Wagner. And then sure enough, I started recording, and then I was like, I showed him the reaction, and it was a look of disappointment initially. And I think now that again, we got to see him in summer league. I think we've heard so much good stuff about him. Heard Juwan Howard give his praise to him. I'm super excited for that. So I think that I'm over the whole Vooch thing now. Obviously,
it can be hard. And if you didn't get that Bulls pick, if that thing fell through, and that's a calculated risk you take.
Exactly.
But that would have made a big difference in how you gauge the return. And Franz will forever be, one of the pieces that came back from the Vooch deal. So he's going to have to deal with that as well. But I think the front office is pretty happy right now with the way it panned out.
They did, and at the end of the day, happy for Vooch in a
Exactly.
nice situation over there in Chicago. So
because here's the one other part, Jay, is look, you're right. It's not a bad idea at all to have a guy like Vooch on roster. It's the same thing we were talking about before with Rolo and with Etuan. If you're rebuilding, having an all-star caliber player is not the worst thing in the world at all. But you think Vooch is going to sign up for that? He loves Orlando. He loves it here, but I'm sure he would have gotten pretty sick of being on 20-25 win teams as well. I'm not sure it's fair to Vooch for everything he did for the organization to say, look, we're going to give you your money, but just know that it's going to be Vooch and the kids for the next 2-3 years, right? Like I don't think that's how he envisioned spending the I guess first couple of years of his 30s out on the floor either. So we'll see.
That's true. It's true. Definitely, and I think as fans and just, people who have played sports or talk about sports or whatever the case is, I think once you get past that and you realize like, okay, like, yeah, there's deeper than just my fandom for the team or kind of what I think should be the good situation. You got to look at it in a broader perspective. And it's hard, honestly, for a lot of people, but
sure.
I think it was a good move all around now, definitely in hindsight. And obviously hindsight's always 2020, but I think what that has taught me more than anything is just be patient, just kind of let things play out. And as a Magic fan, that's hard. I know, everyone, it's not the easiest thing to be patient, but like it doesn't seem like this is going to be a long-term rebuild. I think it's 2-3 years maybe at most, and even shorter. And we're back.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, when you look around, I mean, look, I'm trying to think of a good example. It's like, look at Phoenix, right? If you make a trade for Chris Paul, then yes, like you're going to go from here to here. But the reason Phoenix got to a point where they felt like they could make a trade for Chris Paul, because they drafted Devin Booker, they had some young talent, but even still, Devin Booker, as we know, superstar player, but he didn't win anything. People were questioning if he could win, if he was just an empty calories player, which is ridiculous. Point is, it can happen really, really quickly. You start to build and you start to, okay, I think we're about ready. Again, making a trade for Chris Paul, that's not
always going to happen. Of course,
he's one of the greatest players of all time. But if you just start building and then you make that one move, that one veteran who comes in, or that one trade that puts you over the top, you can go from 12th in the conference to a deep playoff run really quickly. It doesn't have to be that sort of organic 8-year plan. It can happen quickly. You just got to sort of start down here and start building. And this is the painstaking part. But once you get to that level where it's like, okay, we got something here, it can go from here to here really fast.
And to your point, I think this is the first time this front office has actually been in full control of kind of the roster on the whole team and kind of the decisions. And so I think now to that point, the rebuild shouldn't last too long. And, they were responsible for drafting Giannis and all them in Milwaukee. And obviously not a one-to-one comparison, different situations, different players. We don't necessarily have a Giannis type of player. Who knows? You never know. But now
Giannis Tima is out there.
Yeah, right. Close enough, right? We'll definitely bring him in. I tell you, get him in there. He will bring what we need for sure.
The other Giannis.
The other one. Honestly, the one with the better hair. Let's say what it is too. Exactly. All right. But again, that's pretty much just where I'm at with that. And so we're pretty much, kind of agreeance with that. So thank you for kind of giving me your opinion on the Magic and kind of our season and everything like that. Now, just to kind of end real quick, I don't want to keep taking too much of your time here, but kind of wanted to just talk a little bit off topic here, not just the Magic, just kind of have a little bit of fun, just casual, talk and kind of talk about some of your other interests that you may have outside of the radio. Because I think if people that don't follow you, Jake Chapman, I believe it is on Twitter. Yes. It's your Twitter handle. I've followed you for a while now, and just I've always liked getting to talk to you the way I've talked to you, and then seeing the Twitter personality. You mentioned it. If people see you from Twitter, they might think of you differently, but man, it's just very, very entertaining. Always just kind of just interacting with you, kind of seeing what you're doing there, and you're definitely like I said, your interest definitely go outside of the realm of basketball, which I think when people see the people on the radio or people on the TV, they may not think that they're kind of normal people, and it's like that you have different lives and you can have different interests. You're not forced into a box, and want to get you to talk a little bit about kind of what what kind of outside interests you may have that
Man, I don't know about. I mean, normal is the farthest thing to describe me.
We're looking for normal here. We're not worried about.
Well, it's funny. Here, hold on one second. Let me mute. Sorry. Every year when the season ends, Dante and I say like, I don't want to talk to you for 2 weeks or whatever. Like we get away from everything. And usually what I like I always have, my family's still up north in Cleveland, so I always have a trip planned out to get up there. But it's usually like later in the summer, right? Like usually the season ends in April or May, and we have some stuff to do to wrap up. But Dante and I try to just like get away. And there's playoff basketball going on there. I can't get away from everything, right? But I usually just spend a few days like at home, just like completely unplugging. And typically what that means for me, I got a dog, but I'm 37 years old and single, and I rent a house, right? So like, it's not taking care of the kids. I'm not on daddy duty. I don't got none of that stuff. So it's usually me sitting with the dog for a week or whatever and binging something on Netflix or whatever. I don't like movies very much. Like I'm not a big, I have no idea about the Marvel universe. I don't like that stuff's it's just not for me. I don't begrudge anybody. It's just not my stuff. But I like TV series. So I had never done Sopranos. So when the season ended this year, I sat and I watched Sopranos, and like, that is a ridiculous amount of television to watch. I didn't get it done in a week or whatever. I went outside. I showered. But I made it through. I forgot with the math. It's like 180 hours of television or something like that. But so that's what I did for like the first week. I'd watch a couple episodes of Sopranos each day, walk the dog, maybe get out, and it's usually starting to heat up. So, I like to take the dog to the dog parks and Wekiwa Springs and stuff like that. I'm out here in Apopka. But so like, I always make sure I get a little nature and some binge TV in as soon as the season ends. But that's, I don't know, like I'm a sports fan. Otherwise I love hip hop. I love history, and I guess that's about it. I binged a couple of good series over the course of the summer. What was the other one? Oh, I did White Lotus. That one was good. It's not even a binge, but that was awesome on HBO. That show was great. I don't know. I guess I'm a TV guy. I'm a sports nut. I'm a history nut, and I'm a hip hop nut. And I guess that's about it.
Cool. Well, we're gonna get into then real quick. Got a couple questions on some different sports and a hip hop question for you then to wrap this up. But first, we were supposed to meet the other day, but you mentioned you had a fantasy draft and got a little busy. Trust me, definitely understand. It's that time of year. I personally I begrudgingly had my drafts last week, and I hate that. I hate waiting. I hate doing a draft before all the injuries are announced, because look what's happened these past few days. Like, this is why we wait until the last possible minute for the draft. So I wasn't mad at you. I was like, oh man, perfect, go ahead. But to that point, obviously from Cleveland. So kind of talk about a little bit about what your expectations are for them this year.
Okay, well, first of all, I learned a very long time ago that you don't take Browns because it's too much. It's putting way too much stock into it. Like I'm gonna worry about what the Browns do every Sunday. Exactly, it's a little too much. But every once in a while, it's funny. I think last year I took Odell, and obviously that wasn't a very good selection because of the injury. But and I think I had Chubb on the team last year as well. But this year, I wouldn't be scared to take any Browns, but I didn't, almost specifically because I'm not sure it's going to be a great fantasy offense. I think it's going to be a good offense, but I think it's going to be really balanced. I think they're going to continue what they did last year, which is trying to take trying to, I don't want to say make it simple or simplify it, but just trying to make things easier on Baker and
run the ball.
Don't make Baker run the ball. You know, you don't need to scan the whole field. Don't get yourself into trouble. You've got, you know, one of the best receiving corps in the league. You got tight ends all over the place. You got two different backs. You got the best offensive line in the league. Like, the offense should be really balanced, and we should be able to win a whole lot of games without having to hang 42 points on the board, I think, because I think the defense is going to be improved. So to me, like, I have such high expectations for this team this year. I'm so excited. It's been, you know, I was, let me think, they left in 90. I was 10 years old in 94 when they made the playoffs. I was 11 when they left. And we've had one playoff game since, and that was 10 years later, or two playoff games when you count last year. And so, like, even that Steelers game last year, none of us expected to win that game at all. Yeah. I mean, the Steelers' little brother. And being from Cleveland, I got family from Pittsburgh. Like, it's 2 hours away. Like, they've been kicking our ass for my entire life, right? And so the way that we kicked their ass in that game, it was just like, what is happening? And that Chiefs game was it was heartbreaking because we were really close. And so coming back this year and to start with the Chiefs on Sunday, we've been looking forward to it all summer. Like, I just want, like, you know, go back to what I told you about when the season ends. I'm sitting there planning out my summer. I'm going, okay, I'm going to go up north, see my family. I'm going to go to Philly, see my sister. I'm going to binge a whole bunch of TV, whatever. I'm like, but I would just fast forward all my off time just to get to where we are right now, because I've been waiting for this. We've been waiting for this. And of course, like, I can, even just talking about it, Jay, I can feel myself setting myself up.
Yeah. I can see
what it is. That's what this is about. And we, and Browns fans are so passionate. It's so important to everybody up there. And we've been through so much as fans that I think there's a real palpable sense of excitement up there. And boy, it's going to be, there's not much better than early fall, early season lot. It's a parking lot that runs along the freeway up on the lakefront, and from the States, it's like nothing you've ever seen before. So the experience and the environment of Browns games, especially if they're relevant and any good early on in the season, it's ridiculous. I would give anything to be up there for one of these first couple games, but it should be a fun year. I'm excited for him.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, to your point, I've seen definitely a lot of positive, you know, just outlook for the team, just from analysts on ESPN, even the fantasy guys. Like, everybody's just talking, you know, good stuff about the Browns. So I know for you guys, it must feel great. Similar to, like, you know, just with us with the Magic, how when Suggs and everything, it's positive stuff in the national media. Oh, that's a change. That's wonderful. That's exciting.
Yeah, exactly. And with the Browns, like, I'm like, who said that? Wait, who? The Browns? Because we remember, because people in Cleveland take notes. Like, we know, who said what. We remember what Colin Cowherd said about Baker. That's the biggest one. We hold grudges with the best of them, I guess.
Oh no, for sure. That's why it's like, oh no. And I have a few friends from Cleveland that it's you talk and it's the same thing. It's the same passion, same energy. It's just like, yeah. So I get it. We have a thing, Jay. And I think Magic fans kind of do it too. Like, we can talk bad about them, but y'all better not say nothing, right? Like, for sure.
I went through the Browns pain. I will tell you when the Browns are bad. I don't want to hear it from you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think my fandom with football started a little later because of fantasy. So my teams, the heart was never there for the team as much. I initially, like the Saints, I named my dog after Reggie Bush around that time. His name's Reggie. He has kind of the colorway of the Saints, you know, black and kind of brownish goldish kind of colors. So he was, and fast as hell. So, you know, it kind of made the correlation. So I was always a Saints fan, and Darren Sproles, a guy my height, big inspiration. Like, oh shoot, he's doing this in the league. Like, oh yeah, no. And then as I moved up here about 3 years ago, this is pre-Tom Brady, you know, Jameis still, you know, stinking it up back there. I was like, you know what, let me be kind of a hometown team. We start liking Tampa. And then sure enough, they you know, now they won. I was like, okay, this is it, you know? So it's like, so, you know, I'm just kind of, as a fan, my first only game was the Tampa Giants game. I got to see, you mentioned Odell. It was Odell's last year in New York. He got hurt that game. So that was, I think that's when he injured his knee or whatever it was. But I mean, who speaking of injuries, how many does this man have? So,
Right.
but no. To your point, or to my point, excuse me, just kind of want to bring up the fantasy team. So just
Oh yeah.
give a little bit of advice, kind of on not so much advice, but cues on kind of where you looked for in your draft. Who was your first round pick, kind of.
So I did 3 this year, and I'm the
Okay.
commissioner of 2 of them, which is not, I don't think it's ideal necessarily.
Nope.
But
Done it before.
basically what's happened is I always did 2. I did one with my family. It's me and my cousins, and it's obviously a lot more for fun. And then I always had one with my buddies, a couple of my buddies from growing up, from Ohio. And the guy who ran the league, like my best friend growing up, quit this year. He said, I don't want to deal with it no more. He's got 4 kids. I'm like, all right, I'll take over. And my cousin who ran the family league quit last year, and I took over that one last year. So now everybody just keeps on, and I'm the one who steps up. I'm like, all right, whatever, I'll do it. So I got those 2, and then I got another league with some of my buddies from down here. I think 3 is probably too many. I don't even remember, Jay, which one I drafted on the other night when I had to switch up on you. I think it was this one. I think it was my family team. Hold on, let me pull it up real quick. The name of the team is Guys, and I got a picture of Guy Fieri.
Perfect. I love it. See, that's what we're talking about. That's what we love it.
What did I do here? Oh, I made sure I waited on quarterback. So Russell Wilson is always my guy, especially this year because you're getting such value on him. Everybody's jumping for Kyler and jumping for, and I'm sitting there, like, I don't know. I picked him up later. So I think I had the 5th pick. I took Elliott. I'm very disappointed with the way they ran the ball last night. I don't know. I mean, look, they put 30 points or whatever up on that Tampa defense. But if Dallas is going to do anything this year, they better. No, Zeke had 4 carries in the first half of that game yesterday, and I'm going, you better control the ball a little bit better and take a little pressure off. But man, those receivers are so good. And Dak did look pretty good. He settled in. It was a hell of a game last night. I took Zeke early. I got Antonio Gibson on every one of my teams this year. The guy from Washington. So he's a guy I like. I tried to get Jonathan Taylor on all my teams as well from Indianapolis. And I always just try to get guys whose, best football's in front of them. I think when in doubt, take the good player, take the freak, right? Like I got AJ Brown on a lot of my teams this year. And yeah, I don't know. I usually go through. I got Kyle Pitts. I had him. I was locked in on him on a couple teams, and I usually just try to go through and stack running backs and receivers early and find some value on a quarterback or a tight end. Like, if you want Kittle or if you want Kelsey or whatever, yeah, you're gonna have to give up an early pick, but then you don't have to worry about streaming tight ends or whatever, which is a pain. So I kind of like the idea of, maybe spend an early pick on a tight end or a quarterback and just sort of solve that. You don't have to waste roster spots on backups. And so like the 2 of my teams, I got Russell Wilson, but then I missed on him on the other one. And I had to take Jalen Hurts, and we'll see about Jalen Hurts. I'm not sure how crazy I was about that move, but because I did that, I spent 2 other roster spots on Trey Lance and Justin Fields. And I said, if Jalen don't work a couple of weeks through into the season, hopefully, one of those lottery tickets hits, which is okay. It's not the worst thing in the world. But now I got 3 roster spots tied up with the quarterback position. So that's what I don't like about it.
No, definitely. I think that the strategy always wait for a quarterback. I think is the best sound. One of my old roommate, one of my best friends. It's the first time getting him in a fantasy draft. I invited him in. I didn't give him the full rundown, but it kind of I did brief him. Wait on a quarterback. But I guess he did not hear me. First round. Not only does he draft a quarterback, he drafts Tom Brady of all people.
Oh no.
So Jeremy, I'm calling you out on that. Sorry about that. But hey, thankfully he played him. He almost didn't play him yesterday. So I had to get into him, like, bro, if you're gonna draft him number 1, you better freaking play him. Yeah.
Well, this is funny. My cousin in my family league, who I was playing yesterday, I don't know how she did it, but she ended up with like the best. It's only 10 person league. Mm-hmm. So that's part of it. But she ended up with Devontae Adams, Keenan Allen, Mike Evans, and Amari Cooper. and right, and she didn't start Amari. Amari scored 39 points on her bench yesterday because she got. I mean, look, Evans, Devontae, and Keenan Allen, like that's not bad. But yeah, I have no idea how we let my cousin Melanie end up with 4 of the best receivers in the league. But when you got 4, you can only play 3. So maybe I'll make a trade with her or something.
Yeah, no, hit her. That's what she got. Yeah, I had a similar situation as far as my running backs, but 3 of my running backs in one of my leagues. I know I got Jonathan Taylor, James Robinson, and Austin Eckler. Eckler was hurt. He has these reports of his hamstring injury. We'll find out today, see what happens.
Yep.
So I had the conundrum there. I got DJ Moore on the bench, got Darrell Henderson. So I was like, do I swap him out? Do I wait and see? It's kind of my biggest dilemma. But I did have Dak speaking of the game yesterday, so that was wonderful. I did have Amari in another one of my leagues, and fortunately, I did start him. I looked and realized last minute that I did because I thought I left him on the bench.
Yep. There you go.
But,
no, that offense is going to be a monster this year. I got a feeling.
To the point of Zeke running though, I think it was the situation of the game. I think it's kind of you don't want to let his first game back. You're trying to avoid letting Dak get hit. And I think the more you kind of run the ball, the more you kind of slow the game down. You're giving them more opportunity to get at Dak. I think the more fast paced it was, you kind of get the ball out quicker. Maybe avoid the chance. So I think the volume for Zeke is gonna improve definitely.
Yeah, I feel you. And look, it's gonna be if I think if you have to attack Tampa, the way you attack it is through the secondary. So I understand that. And they were picking up that guy Dean. I mean, when he was on the field, he was getting thrown at. That was pretty clearly the game plan. So. No, yeah, I think you're right. That's a good point. I think is as the season goes on, like I don't think Zeke's going to be a bust by any stretch of the. Plus, he looks like he's in good shape too, as long as he can stay healthy, and as long as that offensive line remains intact. Like they did that yesterday, put 30 points on the board without Zach Martin. So I think when they get that thing going, and I think Dallas is going to be serious. And I like Washington a lot too. I think that division's actually kind of interesting because I don't know what Philly's going to be. I'm not sold on New York. But
Fitz Magic over there now.
Yeah, I mean, and that defense, the Washington defense last year was a monster. So
Chase Young,
let my boy get going.
Oh yeah, for sure. So that's awesome, man. Thank you for a little different, switch it up a little bit, talk a little fantasy football. But
anytime, bro. Let's do this again. I like getting my fantasy thoughts out there.
For sure. Oh, definitely. I could definitely do it more often. Just to wrap it up real quick, just kind of end it real quick. You mentioned hip hop. I do want to kind of get your opinion then on this kind of Drake, Kanye, little beef they had going on. And if you've heard Donda and CLB, and if you have an opinion on which is better or which you like more, or just kind of what you think about that. I think that's the hottest thing going on right now.
So here's my deal. I don't like Drake.
Okay.
Is what it is. I respect him. It's just not for me.
Not your cup of tea. Fair enough.
Kanye is one of my all-time favorite musicians, but for about the last 4 albums, I've been like, Donda is actually pretty good, but it ain't College Dropout, it ain't Graduation Day. It's not right. So I'm gonna hold on to the Kanye, the first 6 albums or whatever. Right up until Yeezus, I think it's right.
Yeah, that is when the drop started for sure.
It was kind of the break point.
For sure.
But with that said, like I think he's a genius. He's a musical genius. I don't think there are very many people who have ever been able to create what he creates. Okay, MC, really good writer, but you were talking RZA, Dr. Dre, Prince Paul, beat making and producing. And so I got him up here. I'll always have him up here. I don't really like the person that much anymore. He seems like he's real difficult. But no, I didn't listen to CLB. I'm kind of happy that people say it's that
it's
good.
Like
I did listen to look, if the only thing that comes out of this, because Jay, you're smart enough to know these beefs, these rap beefs. It's fabric.
It's all fabric, all publicity for sure.
And so, but with that said, the leaked track with 3000 on it, who's my favorite rapper of all time,
Goat for sure.
If that's what we
Definitely.
got out of it was, I mean, that was some heavy stuff. And it wasn't mastered and the beat was kind of meh. But as soon as when I hear 3000 doing
Mhm.
that stuff, and especially talking about his mama and how personal it is, like, boy, like that's all I need. I'm good for the year now.
Yeah.
But I will say this. Album of the year and my favorite new rapper who's still doing stuff now and pumping out music is Vince Staples. And
Staples.
Vince Staples,
Okay. Underrated for sure.
self-titled, that guy is he's so talented, man. He's pretty ridiculous. He's a little crazy as well, but that's a little more my speed. I'm
Definitely underrated.
Staples.
So let me hear real quick. Name your top 5 rappers if you got it, or top 5 people you listen to.
You mean doing it right now, or like all
top
time?
5. Just all time, just favorite.
Yeah, I grew up, like, I fell in love with hip hop because of Outkast and Wu-Tang. So those are my 2 favorite groups all time. Outkast, Wu-Tang, period.
For sure.
I love Vince Staples. I'm trying to think of some newer guys. I'm a Kanye stan. Obviously all the West Coast, like, Pac and Dre and Snoop and all the stuff we grew up with. But the guys now that I love are, like, I love Vince Staples. Freddie Gibbs is like, everything Gibbs does is so good. Yeah. Like,
very underrated.
Yeah, and I like Pusha T. Like I because it used to be where especially when I was in college, like I had this sort of like indie hip hop, like I need, Atmosphere and Black Delicious and all this sort of like, weird stuff that wouldn't be played on the radio. And then eventually I was like, if it sounds good, then I like it, right? Like
that's it, yeah.
Like I love Migos, like I love some stuff that I have for hip hop friends, and they're like, this is trash. And I'm like, no, just shut up and like listen, right? Close your eyes and listen to it and bob your head. Like, it's good. It sounds good. So I'm trying to think of any newer dudes. No, Gibbs. I think Gibbs is the one that every time he does something, I'm like, man, like he don't miss.
I can't remember who it was who introduced him to me, but I remember first listening to him. I was definitely thoroughly impressed. I was like, okay, yeah, this is this is what I like to hear. And like, speaking of we mentioned personally for me, Drake was always, he's my favorite. I've liked him since, but granted for me it was a Degrassi thing. I saw him growing up watching on a Degrassi show, and then
I think that makes a huge difference. Thing.
I think it does.
I think he is the voice of an entire generation, and I'm just a little bit older than that generation.
Yeah, no, it does. But to your point, like I've had a harder time getting engaged with the newer music. You mentioned the Migos and how you opinions with your friends, stuff like that. I deal with that too. My cousin's all into the new wave of the trap, and most of my friends are listening to that. I have a hard time enjoying it. Like I still catch myself listening to older music, that's 2000 to 2010 is like the prime era of music.
It don't get any better, Jay. It don't get any better. Let me tell you that, because what happens is the music is evolving. Like we can't. I hate it when people are like, "Oh, these days, blah blah." Like it's okay for you and I to like and appreciate more the stuff that came out when we were younger, or the stuff that spoke to us in different ways. But there's no reason that you have to what you love, right? Like music is music. Like, and as I get older, it ain't gonna sound right to me. I'm gonna be like, what are these kids making these days? But don't begrudge somebody, their art or making money or whatever, just because it's not for you. That's what, like, I always argue, like my friends argue about music as if it's a sports game. Like, no, this is better than this. And I said, this is all subjective. It's supposed to be what speaks to you. Like there's, like there is no right or wrong. It's just what you like.
No, yeah. And I always found it I found it interesting that you just mentioned it right there, like how really connected music and sports are in a lot of senses, and the debates we get into, and the culture of, for example, the NBA and the hip hop culture, just how connected, how rappers want to be ballers and ballers want to be rappers. Like it's, and I think that goes throughout just all genre of music, without all different just types of sports. Like, I think you can find a connection with it. And I think to me, that's the greatest part about just being in the space now. It's like, and seeing these things, it's like, damn, we really just talking about our everyday life, and like, it's like, how can you not enjoy it? Right. When it's just kind of like, when you take black and white and really enjoy it. I think we all can get to that point. And the music thing, I think for sure, with just as generations evolve, as we get older, we're probably still going to be always listening, to what we grew up on. And now I catch myself remembering the times in the car when my parents were playing their Spanish music and always being upset to be that parent I've, even to your point, may not be necessarily your cup of tea, but like, I think you can at least understand why someone would hating on each other for what we like as far as music is. That doesn't do us any favors for sure. But all right, man, that's gonna basically do it for today. Again, thank you so much for your time, Jake. Man, this was a blast. Definitely would love to have you on again. And again, just thank you and looking forward to what to him on social media. If you want, let them know all your social media handles real quick, or you're on.
Yeah, just Jake Chapman OM. That's the best one. We'll be gearing up quite a bit here. We got some plans for this season. Should be an interesting year. I think we're gonna spice things up a little bit. So stay tuned at Jake Chapman OM on Twitter.
All right, there you go, Adam. Jake Chapman OM on Twitter. Again, thank you, Jake, and we'll definitely be talking soon. Bleeds to the studio. Again, I am your host, LJ. Shout out to Jake Chapman for coming in today and blessing us with the first guest interview, and of many more to come, hopefully. And it's going to be a blast this season. So stay tuned. Thank you, guys.